Hey, would you do me a favor? Grab your phone or smart device and open up that camera. Then point it right here at the QR code. Do you have it? I'll wait a second. When you see the link pop up on your screen, give it a tap. You ready? Boom! Welcome to the Hillsborough County official YouTube channel. We've got all sorts of videos here, all about what makes our community such an awesome place. From local events and community highlights to what's in the perfect Cuban sandwich. We've got it all. We're always adding new things, so while you're here, be sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you'll never miss a new video. Here's that QR code again, just in case you missed it. Go ahead and check it out. Ooh. This must have fallen out of that video. This really is the perfect Cuban sandwich.
Tampa Bay is like no place else.
Wait, you can't recycle the bag? You have to throw it away.
Proper recycling keeps it that way for everyone. Bags tangle in machinery and can bring sorting efforts to a halt.
No bags.
Trash the bags and keep our recycling program moving forward.
No, Mom, look, no plastic bags.
Do your part to keep our recycling bag-free. Trash the tanglers or return them to participating retailers. For more information, visit tampabayrecycles.org.
Welcome to a meeting of your Planning Commission. the official local planning agency for the cities of Tampa, Temple Terrace, Plant City, and unincorporated Hillsborough County. The Planning Commission provides innovative leadership and long-range vision that contributes to the creation of a thriving, prosperous community that offers opportunity, fairness, and choice in how we live, move, learn, work, and play. For more information about the Planning Commission, please call 813-272-5940. Follow us on social media or visit our website at planhillsborough.org.
Good evening and welcome to the January 22nd, 2024 public hearing of the Planning Commission on Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Amendments. We thank you for attending this meeting. Your comments and participation are encouraged. For those attending in person and wishing to speak on any agenda item, please sign the register at the rear of the room and turn off any devices that may be a distraction. To minimize feedback in the audio, all online participants in the meeting will be muted until it is their opportunity to speak. Planning commissioners should unmute themselves to indicate that they would like to speak. Please be sure to state your name at the beginning of your remarks for the benefit of the clerk. There will be an opportunity for members of the public to provide comments. When your name is called, you will be unmuted when it is your turn to speak. Please wait until the chair calls on you to begin speaking. State your name at the beginning of your comments and adhere to the time limits. If anyone has difficulties or is watching via HTV and would like to provide comments to be included in the record for the local government hearing, please email them to planner@plancom.org. For those of you who are not familiar with our process, the meeting will be conducted as follows. The agenda item will be introduced. Staff will give their presentation with a 15-minute time limit. The applicant will be given the opportunity to make a presentation with a 15-minute time limit. Following presentations, members of the public may address the Planning Commission when recognized by the chairman. Public comment will be heard for 3 minutes per person. The applicant will be afforded a 3-minute period for rebuttal or response. Planning commissioners will then ask questions. Public comment will be closed. Then upon a motion, a second, and a discussion, a vote will be taken. To all participants, please note that tonight's hearings concern proposed changes to the comprehensive plan. Presentations should not include matters related to zoning applications and site plans that are not before the commission. Zoning conditions are not relevant to plan amendments and may not be considered by the Planning Commission. The Planning Commission's purview in making a recommendation is limited to consistency or inconsistency with the comprehensive plan. That I'd like to ask the clerk to please call roll.
Good evening, Commissioners. Belden?
Here.
Buzza?
Here.
Cardenas?
Here.
Kona?
Here.
Fernandez? Kress?
Here.
Lauk? Surya? Sieben?
Here.
Orton?
Here.
Rodriguez?
Here.
Joseph?
Here.
Thank you. You have quorum.
Thank you. All right. Our first action item tonight is 2A HCCPA 23-21 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal Number 1, Growth Management. And the presenter is Melissa Leinhardt.
Thank you, sir. Good evening, everyone. Melissa Leinhardt with your Planning Commission staff. I'm here tonight to present our first agenda item, which is Goal 1 of the Future Land Use Section Update, and that is for the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. The Comprehensive Plan for Unincorporated County has not been holistically updated since 2008. State law requires that comprehensive plans have a I was hoping for that, just kidding. Requires that comprehensive plans have a 20-year horizon. With a horizon date of 2025, the current future land use section is not in compliance with that requirement. So tonight we're here with a reorganized, streamlined future land use section that incorporates some changes and overall addresses the anticipated growth over the next 20 years. As this slide shows, many of you have seen the other sections that have been updated over the past couple of years. We started with the One Water chapter, and then that was followed by recreation and open space, coastal management, environmental and sustainability, mobility, housing, intergovernmental coordination, capital improvements, and then solid waste. Now we're finishing the last piece of the puzzle, which is the future land use section. And then I just wanted to mention that my presentation for Goal 1 is going to be a bit longer than the other presentations you'll see tonight for the remaining 7 goals. And that's because it includes the background information, like why we're here. I'm going to go through the outreach that we've conducted, and then go through some information related to our population projections. So the other presentations will focus solely on their respective goal changes and their consistency review. So what are we anticipating for future growth? By 2045, unincorporated Hillsborough County will see 350,000 more people and 107,000 more jobs. We'll also have an increasing demand for public services, transportation, schools, and recreation. With this update and in our briefings to you over the past year, we've talked about accommodating growth both inwardly, so inside the urban service area, and also outward future growth, which would be outside the urban service area. This slide shows the urban service area, which is a concept that is part of the future land use section today. It pinpoints where current growth is promoted and focused. Here on the screen, you can see the red area, which is the urban service area, and the square is unincorporated county, Hillsborough County as a whole. One thing that's unique about Hillsborough County is that we have choices on where we want to live. You can choose to live in an urban area, you can choose to live in a suburban area, or you can choose to live in a more rural area. The urban service area is what identifies areas as urban, suburban, or rural in nature. That allows us to have those choices. So as we continue to grow, we know that we are running out of land that is vacant, developable, or redevelopable within the urban service area. And that brings me to my next slide, which shows that there are 49,908 total developable and redevelopable acres within Plant City, the City of Tampa, Temple Terrace, and the urban service area of unincorporated Hillsborough County. Of that acreage, 65% is in the urban service area of unincorporated county, and 35% is in the combined municipal areas. In this map, you can see the developable acreage in purple and the redevelopable acreage in orange. Excuse me, these areas exclude our wetlands and other conservation areas. You can see that most of this land is very small in size, and there are very few large areas that are left for development or redevelopment. This slide shows the breakdown of the various categories on the future land use map, and they're broken down by rural, suburban, or urban in category. They're categorized according to the table that you'll see in Katrina's presentation that's under Goal 2. It includes the full list of categories that we have today on the future land use map with one addition that she'll go through. Rural includes categories like agricultural rural 1 to 5 and residential 1. Semi-rural includes categories like residential 2, Waimama Village Residential 2, and Residential Plan 2. Suburban includes categories like Res 4, Residential 6, Residential 9, and Suburban Mixed Use 6. Urban categories include Residential 12, 16, 20, and Residential 35, as well as Office Commercial 20, Urban Mixed Use 20, and Regional Mixed Use 35. This map shows that unincorporated Hillsborough County is comprised predominantly of future land use categories that are suburban and rural in nature. And as I move forward in my presentation and dig a little bit into Goal 1, this may help us kind of remind us that while some of the things that we're talking about encourage more development at either a suburban or an urban development pattern, this will be a small subset compared to the other future land use categories and breakdowns that are shown on this map. So the policies that you'll see tonight will not be fundamentally changing that. This slide goes through the outreach that we've conducted for this proposed future land use section update. We've had 4 virtual community meetings. We've had 3 that were in person. We've had 5 project advisory team meetings because we're planners and we love acronyms. We call them PAT. And those are the meetings where the folks that really wanted to drill down a little bit more in the various topic areas. We also conducted an online survey with 1,800 responses. And then the update was also featured in multiple media outlets. Personally, I stepped out of my comfort zone for this update in a very big way because I appeared on the Tampa Bay Morning Show with Katrina last year to promote the MetroQuest survey and talk about why the update is so important to the community. A more in-depth overview of all the outreach is covered under the outreach section under each goal in the backup. And then this brings us to the details of Goal 1 itself. This is a publicly initiated plan amendment. It's also the first of 8 goals that you'll see in presentations tonight, all of which make up the entire future land use section update. Goals 1 and 2 focus on growth management. Goal 3 is related to community context. Goal 4 focuses on development. Goal 5 covers agriculture. Goal 6 highlights the built environment. Goal 7's focus is on natural resources, and then Goal 8 relates to economic development. Also, as I mentioned in the beginning of my presentation, this is the last major update of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And this brings us to our proposed changes. Goal 1, the language reads to, I just shuffled my papers, excuse me. It's to maintain a land use pattern that concentrates growth in the urban service area and is supported by existing or planned public facilities and services. Growth 1 includes some modifications to the existing plan language, including the topic of timeliness and growth and development. It also includes the retention of a lot of policy direction that we already have adopted in the plan today about concentrating growth in the urban service area and just keeping our overall strong growth management policies. The newly proposed policy language contains similar adopted language, but elaborates on the appropriateness of future land use map amendments that increase density or intensity within the urban service area to a degree that it changes the category from a suburban category to an urban category. In those cases, the proposed language says that the plan amendments would be considered premature if there's a lack of programmed or urban services, or if there are unaddressed level of service deficiencies for adequate public facilities. This change also includes the addition of language that ensures the proposed change is consistent with the visions of the various community plans. Other newly proposed language maintains the overall concept of the adopted policy, but simplifies language to encourage clustering to protect our natural resources. And it also allows for continued agricultural use in all future land use categories. The proposed policy language supports policy direction under Goal 1 that's focused on directing growth into the urban service area, specifically into areas that allow for 4 dwelling units per gross acre or higher, unless there's an environmental feature or an existing development pattern that would not support that growth. There is also policy direction that focuses on the importance of adequate infrastructure for development. This policy specifically ties back to the development language outlined in the capital improvement section of the comprehensive plan. Additional new policy language outlines the importance of coordinating with adjacent jurisdictions to manage the timing and location of new development and redevelopment along our jurisdictional borders. The new language is complementary and consistent with the adopted language from the intergovernmental coordination section that I mentioned earlier. There was also modification to the criteria that must be met for public or privately initiated plan amendments to the urban service area boundary. This language outlines one of the ways that Goal 1 may be implemented. These criteria include ensuring that what is proposed is adjacent and contiguous to the current urban service area boundary, or if not contiguous, that there are unique circumstances that need to be demonstrated that would warrant the separation, such as the presence of environmental lands. There's also new policy direction that explains the presence of suburban or urban future land use categories in the rural area does not mean that Hillsborough County will be specifically providing central water and sewer service to these areas, and that water and sewer provisions are outlined in the One Water section of the comprehensive plan. That brings us to our biggest change under Goal 1, which is the introduction of urban expansion areas to accommodate future population and job growth. These are areas that are currently in the rural area today that will transition to suburban or urban as a development pattern over the planning horizon of the comprehensive plan, which now would look out to 2045. This language specifies that growth should occur in an efficient manner while addressing infrastructure demands, housing and job needs, and natural and rural area preservation, as well as our quality of life. This policy specifies that urban expansion areas would require a publicly initiated plan amendment, and that an urban expansion plan, an area plan, which is like a larger area master plan, would be needed to look at the area in a more big picture. Specifics of that policy language include requirements like creating an efficient pattern of development that will ensure that goods and services, as well as community facilities, are located proximate to the new residential areas, incorporating transitions to existing rural and agricultural areas, considering adopted community plans, gathering community input, planning for needed public facilities, ensuring that natural systems are maintained, planning for future transportation corridors and connections, analyzing and evaluating the short and long-term fiscal impact on the county, and reviewing and aligning impact fees, mobility fees, and other tools that would help support infrastructure and land use development strategies. This brings us to our agency comment slide. Throughout the update process, we had multiple meetings with various working groups with the intention of hearing feedback by topic area. This included several agencies with Hillsborough County, like Development Services, the County Attorney's Office, Conservation and Environmental Lands Management, Economic Development, and Community and Infrastructure Planning. We also met with other important groups like the port and the airport. We've gone through multiple drafts, and we've shared those with the important stakeholders along the way. We made changes during the outreach process, and with the last draft comments that were sent out for agency review, we specifically created a response sheet that you will find in your backup under Appendix C. Many of the changes were made based on this input from external agencies, and it's our understanding that issues that were raised have been addressed and there are no formal objections. And this brings us to the consistency review of Goal 1. Goal 1 is consistent with several policies of the future land use element today. In addition to the major changes that I talked about on the previous slides, the section updates and retains important components of the existing and adopted language, and it's consistent with those components. This includes proactively directing growth into the urban service area, as well as guiding growth into areas that can accommodate that growth with public infrastructure and services. And the proposed changes are also consistent with policy direction regarding growth, public utilities, and coordination with other jurisdictions as outlined in the One Water chapter, the intergovernmental coordination section, and the capital improvement section of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And based on that analysis, Planning Commission staff is recommending that the proposed text amendment, HCCPA 23-21, be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan. I, of course, am here for questions, and we also have our internal expert on population projections, our numbers guy, is here as well, Mr. Yasser Gonzalez. Thank you.
All right, thank you. We had a few people sign up for this one in the public comment. Let me see. No one virtual. Seems like everybody's in person. Yes, for public speaking. I'll start with Cammie Corbett.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward & Henderson, and I want to start off this evening by thanking staff. I think this has been a really big task for them to undertake. It's been a long time coming, and they have been very receptive and open to receiving feedback from all stakeholders. And for the most part, we are in support. I am in support, and the development community, including TBBA, is in support of Goal 1. There is one comment that I caught last night that I hadn't had the opportunity to speak to staff about that I do want to raise, and that's the issue of the private expansions where expansion areas more than 20 acres need to be mixed use. I'm not sure if you meant 20 acres because that's only 80 units. I thought maybe it was 200 acres, but that was just something to take a look at, and it was something that hadn't come up in our review previously, so I don't know where that came from. So that's just my comment, but otherwise just compliments to you, and I respectfully request that you recommend a finding of consistency.
Thank you. Did you want to respond?
If I can, I believe that if you're speaking to in 1.1.9 has been deleted. 2.2, okay, let me look there.
All right. Next up, we have Dave Coleman.
I just want to thank you, and I'm extremely pleasantly surprised. I've been to some future land use meetings, and all I'm hearing about is what they talk about on the second floor, about pulling resources out into East and South County. And right off the bat, it was retained language directing growth into the urban service area, which may expand or it may not. But they need to understand downstairs that they serve 1.5 million people in Hillsborough County, including me, that I live just north of Tampa on Florida Avenue, and I don't even know what water district I'm in. It's an ambiguous place. I'm supposed to be Hillsborough County. One thing that she mentioned in her talk was solid waste. My bill went up $85. The city can't get a mill increase, but my bill went up $85 a year for my garbage disposal, and that's the least of my problems. The biggest thing is 220 people dead in Hillsborough County 2 years ago from traffic accidents, and 7,450 hit and run accidents. We need to focus resources on making our community safe and livable. Yes, it's going to expand into the rural area, which oftentimes downstairs you hear that's God's country and we don't want to touch it. Well, please continue to bring resources to the 1.5 million constituents that you have. Thank you, and thank you for the work you're doing.
Thank you, sir. All right. Next up, we have, let me check this out. Yeah. Does William O'Brien, is he here to speak for A? Yeah, please go ahead.
I'll be short. I appreciate the effort that's been undertaken to try to update this plan. I recognize that it's way behind schedule, and I think Hillsborough County has suffered severely over the past 25 or 30 years because of there hasn't been a good plan and a good approach to take. And I just want to comment in one perspective relative to goal number 1. And that's in, I believe it's policy 2. It's actually covered in 2.1 and 2.2. And it's the component that consists of the requirements before development can be approved, the requirements requiring that infrastructure, and I'm trying to read it, but my print is so small I can't read it. So, but there's adequate capacity for infrastructure, including transportation, schools, parks, fire, EMS, sheriff's office in place or planned to serve development within the expansion areas. I guess the only comment I'd like to add to is, first of all, I'm glad that's there. I believe it's necessary, but I'd like to include that I personally believe that there should be words or verbiage that mandates that if that does not exist, that the further or the proposed or the development cannot be approved. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. All right. Next up. I'm going to try Jeff Oswald to see. No, okay. No. Oh, we do have someone virtually who didn't say what they were here for, so I'm going to try. Is Clara Lawhead on the line? HTV?
Not that I see online.
Okay. Give it one more look. We got Coleman and James. Yeah, that is it for that one. So I will turn it over to the planning commissioners for, staff rebuttal. Did you have anything to say, or did Ms. Lionheart want to say some words?
Sure. Ms. Corbett and I were talking about her comment on the 20 acres, and I'm not seeing it in my clean or my strike-through version, so I'm wondering if perhaps it was in a previous version, just mistakenly included, and then we saw that and cleaned it up, but it's not in the version that's part of your packet today. So if
Okay.
that was in there before, it is no longer in there.
And that was a 2 policy, wasn't it? Because we're on 1 right now, so.
The policy to expand the urban service area used to be 2.2, and now it's
1.9.
1.1.
Also changed a couple times.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so.
I better start memorizing them now.
Right.
Yes, 1.9 is the expansion of the urban service area boundary that can be publicly or privately initiated. And then the urban expansion area policies start at 1.3.1. But there's no mention of 20 acres in either of those, so we're just wondering if maybe there was some kind of mistake at some point that was cleaned up.
Okay.
But none of us recall the details of that.
All right, then with that, I will turn it over to the commissioners for discussion. Questions on this one? Yes, Commissioner Coma.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. In regards to, first of all, great job on this. Being new here, it was a lot of awesome reading material to get through this first meeting. Is there any science, I'm talking about policy 2.2, is there any science about quarter mile that a property can be for water and sewer? Is there any research behind that? Like it has to be a quarter mile away?
Do you mean policy 2.2 under goal 2?
Yes. No, under goal 1.
Oh, 1.9.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 1.9. Sorry.
The quarter mile.
I think what maybe the reason everybody's talking about 2.2 is because it's in the staff report as a policy that it is, that
the
this is
original.
consistent with. So we included adopted policies
Yes.
that
Okay.
it's consistent with. The revision to 2.2 now is in 1.1.9, and I believe we removed the distance
Yes.
for the infrastructure, but let's double check that.
Yeah, because that was my concern. I just wanted to make sure that we're not doing ourselves a disservice by putting a distance requirement in there, especially if private development wants to come in and fund something, larger than that. So that was my concern. And as long as it's not in there, I'm good.
Yeah.
I just didn't know if there was anything.
We did remove that.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you. Were there any other, I did have a couple questions. I was wondering about the publicly initiated and privately initiated. They're separated first, and then they're kind of put together. And then under 1.1.9, publicly and privately initiated amendments of the USA boundary will meet the following criteria. Are we okay with that will making it mandatory? Does that give the BOCC room to kind of change and flex and do the things they want to do? Or does this mean that if the publicly UEA is started and then someone wants to come from the private sector and start something, are they going to be held to the exact same standard legally because of, the will?
That's a great question. I would say yes, they would. But as you mentioned, the new policy, 1.1.9, not to confuse everyone even more, that is for privately initiated plan amendments and publicly initiated, so it's a level playing field for both entities. And that's for an expansion of the urban service area, like a development by development kind of option, which we're seeing a little bit more of right now. But the urban expansion areas, those are just publicly initiated. And they have a very similar threshold as far as the list that's under 1.1.9, talking about the fiscal impact, the natural systems, the effect on community plans, they're very similar. So yes, they would be held to that, but I think the way that they're written, they're kind of zoomed down in more of a general nature. So I think there's a lot of ways that you could address these requirements. So
Okay.
it's not just one set way.
Okay. And 1.3.2, I was looking at these. Additional urban expansion areas will be considered if the Bureau of Economic Business Research, BEBR, forecasts Planning Commission population projections, yes, sir, or an evaluation and appraisal report are depict the need for expansion to accommodate additional population or job growth during the time frame covered by this plan. So there's that list of 3 things. Is that, again, a limitation? Can, for instance, if BOCC or a private entity wants to look in other areas to challenge population projections or even, you know, substantiate their own arguments based on population projection, is there that flexibility in there, or are we only required to use these 3 areas when it comes to that standard?
Another great question. I am not an attorney, but it seems to me that it would be limited by those 3 options. And if there was more flexibility desired, then that could be written into the policy this evening as a recommendation.
Yeah, I would agree. Now, the Bureau of Economic and Business Research is what in state statute we are guided to utilize for the projections countywide for the plan. They are updated annually. Then Yasser takes those and breaks them down by geographies, and that's where the Planning Commission population projections come in, because we provide the projection that's what is Plant City versus the city of Tampa versus all of Hillsborough County. And we do those every 5 years. So we think there's flexibility in that these are have solid methodologies behind those projections, and because the Bieber forecasts are updated annually, is that correct? Yeah. If you want to speak to that.
Yes, indeed. Good evening. This is Yasser Gonzalez, Planning Commission staff. Bieber is the official forecaster for the state. For our revenue projections for the state, for all sorts of important matters, that's what BBR is. So it is the go-to body to do so. And again, they update annually. There is always certainly a willingness to work with people should they should the need arise. Like I said, if there's a problem, we know, for example, for Pinellas County, for them it's difficult to forecast Pinellas. I said they have a lot of redevelopment, and that's one of the toughest not to crack in terms of projections. So they will tend to be a little more flexible. But in our case, they have been doing a fairly good job, so we would like to stick with them. And I don't think that that's restrictive as it's written.
Okay. I mean, my question really wasn't against Bieber or our projections. Obviously, I'm chairman of the Planning Commission, so I'm okay with all those things. My question really is, if someone comes outside, can they bring in outside sources? How do we look at that? I mean, is there a mechanism for looking at that, or do we just tell them, no, this is what it is? It's this and then nothing else.
If you would like to contemplate other sources being able to be considered, I think we would need direction to add something in there, or similar, data sources, something like that opens the door to other.
Did you get any feel? I guess I was just going to ask if you got any feel from the BOCC on this, and then I realized, I'm the only nerd who goes through and, looks at this stuff like this. So, I mean, has anybody else said anything about these limitations or anything? Have you gotten a feel from anybody else about this? No?
We have not.
Okay. Well, let it be then. I'll let it be.
If I may, Mr. Chair, once again, this is Yasser Gonzalez, Planning Commission staff. What I've seen in my considerable experience in this type of situations is that if you choose to deviate from BBR, you would just bring whatever source you think, and then we just need to have verbiage that will reconcile. Say we chose to deviate because of X, Y, and Z, and it happens in places where it's kind of sticky to get the right growth. So maybe a language to that effect, if it's not already understood. But typically, the way these things are, the way we work collaboratively with this in the situations, we would then entertain, folks coming forward and saying, "Hey, we have this other source, and we're thinking it's better, or different," and we just know on the, in that document that's why we're going different route. But again, if that needs to be explicit, that will be beyond my bailiwick.
Okay, I'll let it go. Thank you. I have any more? Yes, Commissioner Kress.
Thank you. I have maybe kind of a more basic question. I know that I'm not a developer, but I can imagine that greenfield development is a much easier proposition than redevelopment and brownfields and all of that kind of thing. So would you say that these favor redevelopment over an expansion of the urban service area into, rural areas or more green space?
That's another good question. I would say that goal 1 mainly pertains to concentrating growth inside the urban service area as a concept and then allowing for that expansion. So it's kind of setting up the framework for goal 2, which Katrina will dig into a little bit. And what we've talked about with the MetroQuest study that we did last year, and then continually with the community meetings, the stakeholder meetings, the advisory meetings, is talk about how there's 2 prongs of growth. We can handle it inside the urban service area. We have infill provisions, bonuses that she'll go through, a new bonus, and then we have this new tool. And I do think you are right that greenfield development is, kind of on its face a little bit easier because you're not looking at the existing development pattern in the same way. But also I would say it's also challenging, right? Because you don't have the connections in place, you don't have the public services in place. So I think they're probably both a little bit difficult, but I don't think this is setting it up to be easy, if that's your question. I think that there's a balance we're trying to strike here. So I think that's what goal 1 and 2 being entitled growth management, that's why it's so important, because it's telling everyone that, hey, we have strategies and it's really a 2-pronged approach. We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket.
Thank you, because 350,000 people is a lot.
Sure is.
So, yeah, it's important work that you're doing.
It's almost like another city of Tampa.
Yeah.
Commissioner Sieben.
In policy 1.1.11, privately initiated expansions of the urban service area shall include full cost recovery to the county for the services needed by the new development in perpetuity. Can we talk about what full cost recovery means exactly and how we plan to make sure that they're charged in perpetuity for these costs?
Can I ask which page you're looking at?
It's the appendix.
Okay. Yeah, so just so everyone's, because I think, because what happened is when the agencies reviewed, they put like their comments on the old draft. There's like multiple versions of this in this packet. So if you, the version starting on, what page is this? It's page, if you start on page 18 of the PDF, that is the clean version of what we're proposing. And policy 1.1.11 is deleted.
Yes.
Because we got a lot of questions,
Okay.
just like yours.
All right.
So,
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
All right, were there any more I had one more question. I see this term bona fide agricultural uses, and I'm just wondering what is a bona fide versus what is just a whatever agricultural use?
Another great question. That is defined in state statute, and I believe it ties back to tax exemptions.
Okay.
So we've used that terminology just to be consistent about bona fide agriculture.
All right. Very good. All right, were there any more questions or discussion items from the commissioners? I'm not seeing any lights, so I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we find HCCPA 23-21 consistent with the goals and Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward on to the county commissioners.
All right, Commissioner Bowden, sorry.
A second motion.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Bowden. Are there any comments, discussion from the commissioners? All right, then would all please signify their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, it passes unanimously.
Thank you.
All right, next up we have 2B, HCCPA 23-22 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal Number 2, Growth Management, and the presenter is Katrina Corcoran.
Good evening. Good evening, Katrina Corcoran, Planning Commission staff. I'm here today to present Goal 2, which again is another growth management goal. So some of the proposed changes to Goal 2 for growth management include the future land use categories table. No major changes to the categories themselves. This section was previously an appendix in the back of the plan only. Having this summary near the start allows easy reviewing of the category, intent, typical uses, etc. We also have a new bonus structure called Centers and Connections, or CNC. So the intent is to streamline the comprehensive plan amendment process by allowing density and intensity bonuses. within Hillsborough County, directing growth to areas where it's desired and maintainable within the urban service area. These centers and connections are identified on an associated map, which will be adopted as a part of the policy language. The methodology for that map, as well as the map itself, are in the next couple of slides, so I'll have more details on that for you momentarily. There are policy provisions, design provisions that are required if someone chooses to utilize the bonus structure, but it is incentive-based, so it's not required. If someone is within a center or connection, within that buffer area that we have, again, it's incentive-based and you're not required to use it. We also have an update to the transfer of development rights, or TDR language. This is for the pilot program and receiving areas to make them more implementable and to guide companion land development code amendments that are forthcoming. It includes noting that the receiving areas for TDRs include Waimama and CNC locations, and it establishes the pilot program for 20 years. We also have new language to increase the opportunity to develop congregate living facilities, or CLFs. So this is based on Board of County Commission direction, and it more clearly defines where CLFs can be considered within certain future land use categories and how their intensity and density will be determined. So they're still allowed in every residential, commercial, and industrial FLU category, but they're also now allowed for consideration in the public, quasi-public category. And they may utilize either a density conversion rate, so the number of beds per dwelling unit per gross acre, or FAR. This slide shows you, again, that map methodology before I show you the map, looking closer at what the connections are. So these were established on roads that either have an adopted roadway context classification that supports more walkability. This would be suburban town, urban general, or future land use categories that already support the potential for higher density. Corridors within the coastal high hazard area are excluded, and they have the potential for density bonuses along these corridors. We also have centers, so these include major intersections and areas identified in the community plans for redevelopment or walkability. The centers in the coastal high hazard area, again, are excluded. There's a potential for intensity and density bonuses within these centers. I did want to note that throughout this process, based on public input, stakeholder input, elected and appointed official feedback, we've refined the map throughout the process. So this shows you the final map through that refinement. The blue lines are the connections. The pink on the blue lines is an 1/8 a mile buffer along the connection, showing you where this is applicable for the bonus. And the blue circles that you see are the centers. The buffer there is 1/4 mile. Further proposed changes for Goal 2 include simplifying language for sections on minimum density and calculation of density and intensity. Also alters existing policy language for the incentives for mixed use bonus. So this would remove the capability for 3 land use categories, focusing on 2 categories that are vertically integrated. Also clarifies existing policy language for the upland forest density and intensity bonus and the environmentally sensitive land density calculation. A lot of words there. Again, for agency comments, each goal received comments from external agencies. There were changes made for Goal 2 that was primarily clarifying language, either through meetings with county staff or just clarifying within the policy language itself. Staff also addressed other comments in staff responses. Again, that's available in Appendix C in your packet. There were no formal objections for Goal 2. The section update, this goal updates and retains important components of the existing language, and it's consistent with those components. This includes timing and location of growth for development in a feasible manner through components such as centers and connections, TDRs, and other bonus structures and language. That includes FLU Objective 2 and FLU Policy 2.3. There's also bonus structures and language that direct growth inside the urban service area into areas with existing infrastructure. So that includes FLU Objective 3, FLU Policy 3.1, FLU Objective 5, and FLU Policy 5.1. Planning Commission staff recommend that proposed text amendment HCCPA 2322 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions after public comment. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right.
Can I I just wanted to mention that the clean version of this one starts on page 11 of the PDF, so that everyone's looking at the right one. There's so many versions in there. Thanks.
All right, we are going to the public comment on this one, and we will start with Cammie Corbett again.
Good evening, Cammie Corbett with the law firm of Hill, Ward, and Henderson. I do have a concern about specifically the elimination of the horizontal mixed-use density bonus, particularly if you're trying to encourage redevelopment in the urban service boundary and trying to direct growth there. That horizontally mixed-use product is really helpful, particularly for townhomes, but also different types and more innovative types of development that don't necessarily want to vertically integrate. And you're really then applying mixed-use density only to multifamily in that context, right? Because if you're vertically integrating, you're doing a multiple-story building. And so if you want to do villas or you want to do townhomes or duplexes or those types of neighborhoods, you can't do that under this policy any longer. And I think that's probably a step in the wrong direction, but otherwise support the goal.
Thank you. All right, next we have, flipping back and forth here, David Coleman. Nope, you're good? All right. And I will try Bill O'Brien again because you put open down. So do you want to talk about this one? I'll pass. Okay. All right. So we had signed up for the public comment on this item. So I will. Oh, rebuttal. Would you like to? Yeah.
So my name's Jeff Oswald, Hillsborough County resident in the northern Hillsborough area. And about the centers and connections, I especially appreciate that part of it. I have a concern about distressed or areas that just seem to be left behind, if you will, especially in the city, I guess, Waters Avenue, Armenia Avenue. So I'm hopeful that Centers and Connections will kind of help address those areas for redevelopment, Sulphur Springs as well. And one of the centers that I didn't notice was at the intersection of Fletcher and Del Mabry for consideration of like a downtown Carrollwood type of a redevelopment. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. That's all we had sign up for the public comments. So Ms. Corcoran, if you wanted to respond.
Thank you. In terms of just going off what I heard first there, the center, we did look in that area, but we had a very detailed analysis in terms of looking at the future land use categories and the connections. So I believe that might have been in consideration in an earlier version of the map and then was potentially removed along through the processes of looking at the existing and future land uses. In terms of the mixed-use bonus, I believe that we're open to changing the language on that, but I also will let Melissa speak to that.
Sure. Melissa Leinhardt for the record. I would say that my team is the team that looks at the applications for rezonings that ask for a mixed-use density or intensity bonus that is horizontal. So instead of being in the same building, it could be spread throughout a plan development or on a site plan. We've seen some limitations in the past because there aren't many specifics under that policy about how much is the secondary and tertiary use, what is meaningful, what does integrated really mean, what does interconnected really mean. We've had some difficulty in rezonings trying to enforce that bonus. So instead of making it a very multi-layered, requirement-driven policy, we proposed to eliminate it, but if the Planning Commission feels that that is not a direction that you would like to move in, I think that we could add that back in. And then because this is going to be viewed, as we all talked about on Friday when we briefed you individually, that this is more of a living document and we plan on coming back with some more changes on a regular basis, not every 15 years, that we can add that to the list of something to research. Other jurisdictions, how do they handle it? Do they have a timing mechanism in place? Do they have a minimum threshold for the use requirement? These are all things that are lacking in the plan today, and we didn't have a great answer for it quite yet. So we thought if we took it out, it would eliminate that option and we could focus on vertical integration. But I do see what Ms. Corbett did say about eliminating potential for infill development. She makes a good point. So if that's something you all want to add back in, we can add that to our list of things to look into.
Thank you. Did you want to finish up, Ms. Corcoran?
The only other thing that I thought of related to the centers is I did want to clarify that it's only for unincorporated Hillsborough County, so not for the city of Tampa for that comment. Thank you.
But just to add, we are looking at a similar concept in the city of Tampa.
Yes.
So when we get to that update, we'll have more on that.
Okay. All right. Over to the commissioners. Commissioner Sieben.
I wanted to speak to what Ms. Corbett had talked about, and just giving, some anecdotal examples. I, have done development in the past, and so I think that this density bonus in particular can be really helpful in the unincorporated county because, for example, I had a 50-acre project where we developed we're planning to develop some apartments, some townhomes and duplexes as a secondary use, and then a daycare as a tertiary use. And I understand the difficulty in enforcement, and actually at the Board of County Commissioners, at that hearing in particular, we committed to tying the CO of the tertiary use to the CO of our first units, and that's something that helped us, so maybe that's something that we could consider in the future. And in addition, I think maybe in the unincorporated county, the vertically integrated might not be as pertinent as we would hope it would be, because again, that's something else that I've encountered where I had to put residential units on top of like a storage facility, which didn't make a whole lot of sense in a more suburban environment. So I don't know if that's also something that we could clarify or specify further. So, my recommendation maybe, if, the rest of the commissioners agree, would be to maybe leave the bonus for now and then come back and clarify or fix it up as necessary.
Thank you for that feedback.
Thank you, Commissioner Kona.
Yeah, I would support what Commissioner Stevens said on that. I think keeping the dialogue open and doing what we can to keep that in there. Can we talk about the transfer of development rights for a second? Are there any restrictions in this? And if we have limits or restrictions, what are they?
So in terms of the policy language, it does restrict the receiving areas as Waimama and the centers and connections locations, which you saw on the map earlier. The more detailed implementation portion of that will be forthcoming in a land development code amendment. So this is really just setting it up so the program is established, the receiving areas are established. It's very generalized language, and more of the detail will be in the land development code.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, I had a couple questions while I wait for any others to put lights on. I had actually a few questions on this one. A lot of the policies in this one too seem like they could be potentially limiting to the elected officials, and I don't like to get this agency in the way of the BOCC and their thing. Like they can do their thing. They're the elected officials. They have the authority, but like designating the county administrator in 2.8.9, we kind of have this list of things that Hillsborough County shall evaluate for the pilot TDR program. 2.8.1, 2.8.4, I kind of have the same, it's mostly around the TDR and a lot of these things. Like we seem to be telling the elected officials what to do, and I know that's not really where policy should fit in, so I wanted you to kind of speak to that, or I see Ms. Zornita moving also.
I did want to, I'll let Melissa speak as well, but I did want to, this should be, I think, reflected on a page that you all received this afternoon, but 2.8.9, county staff requested to modify that to Hillsborough County shall evaluate the pilot TDR program to measure program effectiveness and delete the rest of it for flexibility. But I'll let Melissa speak if there's more to that.
Sure, I just would add that the county's had a TDR program for probably 20 to 30 years, and it has never been utilized. So the goal of this is to try to revamp it, and they are starting with this pilot program that's more limited. This language was provided to us by the county's Development Services Department, who led the project to revamp the program, and that's why there's going to be companion land development code to come along with it. So they certainly, the county administration, based on your questions, I reached out to them. They were comfortable with what the language is with, they requested that 2.8.8 be deleted as it was not necessary, and then 2.8.9, they recommended that sort of shortening it to give them some more flexibility. But they fully expect that this is a pilot program, that it'll come back and be evaluated and more areas added to it if they've gotten it right this time.
That still gives me pause, because that's usually where that war goes on, is between the elected officials and the departments beneath them. So I don't know, is that going to be told to the Board of County Commissioners when you present this in front of them, that, you know,
yes,
they went back
and county, Mr. Gormley's
will be
typically
there
at the those
Okay.
hearings as well.
Yeah, I just don't want this agency getting into those sorts of bickerings and back and forth, you know what I mean? We're a policy agency, and that's regulatory stuff that they're dealing with over there. They like to throw us under the bus and throw us in the middle of their cat fights, and, you know, I'd like to keep us out of those things as much as possible. So it's my only reason for asking these kinds of questions, you know.
Yeah, and I very much appreciate that. I do think that it is streamlined. What used to be in the plan was a lot more detailed, and so I think it's starting to move back to the right balance of policy in the plan and then the code language in the code. And I do expect that you'll see the code language either at your March or April meeting.
Okay. And I had a question also about policy. It's less cat-fighty. Well, maybe not. Hold on a second here. 2.7.6. When utilizing the bonus, gated communities are not allowed, and we have to demonstrate cross-parcel connections. Why are the gated communities not allowed?
Yeah, so I did also want to add that there was a change based on stakeholder feedback to 2.7.6 that should also be in that document that you received this afternoon. So 2.7.6 has added when complementary uses are adjacent to address the stakeholder concerns with no flexibility within that policy. I'd also like to add that the intent of the policy is to prevent areas that from having no public access or connectivity, so just completely blocking them off. But I do understand that some areas may want, a gate for security reasons. So staff would like to suggest that we could, based on that feedback from the briefings, that we could add to that policy the first sentence and ending with, "This is not intended to preclude internal site security," to make that more clear.
Okay. Sounds good. And in general, I wanted to say on this centers and connections, I had kind of a hard time in just reading over the policy in general. And I guess you're the right person to say this too, because you do a lot of transportation stuff. It seems, and this is a going forward thing, you know, I'm not falling on a sword over this, but as we go forward with this living policy, I think it's incumbent on staff to really look at these things separately. In this policy, they're really written together, centers and connections. And when you think about it in the built environment, a center is a very different thing than a connection. We're talking about, stasis versus motion. So the way you kind of just throw all these policies in there, like, oh, bikes and peds and micro-mobility should front onto these things, and they should also be in centers. Like, the way we do bikes and peds and micro-mobility in a center has to be different than the way we do it at the edge of the road, right? So there's not that sort of sensitivity in this document. And again, I'm not falling on the sword about all this stuff. These are things that can get hashed out as we go forward, but I think as planners, it's incumbent on you all to really think through those things. Don't just come up with these words and throw it out there and say, well, this is what it's going to be, because these have real consequences for people. When you put micro-mobility on a sidewalk, it closes down the width of the sidewalk. There's less room for different things to go on. That brings you closer to the traffic. There's different dangers for, pedestrians and drivers in those situations. So I think those things need to be thought out and fleshed out a whole lot more in this policy, but it is a good start, so I just wanted to mention that.
Appreciate that feedback. Thank you.
What else? Make sure anybody has any lights on. Parking. We talk about on-street and off-street parking in this, and that's another general point I wanted to make. It seems kind of mixed up. We're kind of adding parking and not adding parking. I didn't really understand how we were trying to do it. Do we want more surface parking? Do we not want more surface parking? Do we want more on-street parking? Do we not want more on-street parking? it was hard for me to get a sense of what staff was saying. It seems like they were trying to catch all, and there wasn't a lot of specificity to it. So,
Yeah, and I understand your point. I think it's policy 2.5.11 talks about encouraging reductions in parking, and I know I don't have the policy number. I can look that up, but the other one that encourages on-street parking, I think there we're really trying to get at that there are different types of developments that could come along with this bonus structure. So we were really trying to catch all of that with the on-street parking that can serve to slow down traffic and be more of a safety measure as well. But it's really just intended to hit all of those points in different types of development in different types of areas, because as you can see in the Centers and Connections map, we have different types of areas. And additionally, we wanted to make sure that sometimes applicants will ask for a reduction in parking, so just having that encouraging language there, and then a little bit of the design with the on-street.
okay. And my last one, and I'll be quiet. You all are getting tired of me. Did we get the missing policies? There were some missing policies that weren't in our documents. Did we get that?
I fixed that on Friday, and thank you for bringing that to our attention. Something must have happened with those large packets, but all those policies should be in there, and they are posted online.
Okay. Thank you very much. All right. Are there any more questions or comments from the commissioners? Everybody's tired of listening to me talk, so that I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this item and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Sieben.
I could try to make a motion. It's my first one, so bear with me. All right, so motion to approve HCCPA 23-22 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment Goal 2 Growth Management, while striking the portion. Do I have to pick that particular portion?
You're adding back in the stricken language from 2.3.6, and then I don't know if you want to add in the internal site security language that came up in 2.7.6.
Yes, both of those.
Okay.
Melissa, quick question. For the policies that they received in the document, do we need to mention those in the motion as well? Or?
No, I checked with Tracy, and we should be good. Thank you.
All right.
I'll second.
All right, so we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Sieben, adding in the information, one set of information, and striking one set of information that Melissa's got noted here, so she'll take care of that. And a second to that consistency finding by Commissioner Kona. Are there any comments or discussion from the commissioners? Not seeing any, would all signify their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, aye. So the motion passes 2-4-6-1, with Commissioner Joseph voting against it. 7-1, sorry. 7-1, with Commissioner Joseph voting against it. All right. Next up on this fun-filled evening, 2C, HCCPA 23-23 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment Goal 3 Community Context, and the presenter is Andrea Papandrew.
Good evening, Andrea Papandrew, Planning Commission staff. This is the Goal 3 for the Future Land Use Section update for the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. So this goal is going to pose 5 new objectives. The first proposed change is the combination of the compatibility and community planning sections. These are the existing objectives 16 and 18 in the future land use element today. Staff are proposing to combine these sections in Goal 3 to highlight the importance of our existing policies and ensuring development is compatible with the unique character of our neighborhoods. Edits include the addition of language in policy 3.1.1 on limiting commercial and mixed use in residential future land use categories, which coincides with the existing commercial locational criteria in Goal 4, which Jay will mention in his presentation later today. And then the second proposed change is to update and consolidate language pertaining to the economically disadvantaged populations, which was housed in the economically disadvantaged groups element, or EDGE for short. The EDGE element is optional per state statutes for the comprehensive plan, and several policies have already been incorporated and moved into other sections of the comprehensive plan, such as mobility, recreation, open space, and intergovernmental coordination. So the future land use update for goal 3 intends to bring over those remaining EDGE policies that address topics such as housing, employment and economic development, public health, and land uses. Some of the policies under proposed objectives 3.3 and 3.4 were rewritten to update terminology for the 20-year vision and strengthen the compatibility section of goal 3. There is a new objective 3.3 and policy 3.3.1, and those were added to align land uses and new community facilities which are close to the economically disadvantaged populations or public transportation. So any policies that were not proposing to be moved over from the EDGE into the future land use section or other sections of the comprehensive plan, they are proposed for deletion, mostly due to being duplicative with the other EDGE or comprehensive plan policies. All the policies proposed for deletion in the future land use section are going to be found in Goal 8, the Goal 8 packet, which will be presented later today. And then the final proposed change is the cultural and historical preservation section, which has been updated to reflect current programs and needs. So for Goal 3, there are no formal objections received. However, we did receive agency comments with some requested language changes, and multiple changes were made. As with the other goals, Planning Commission staff have crafted responses to any agency comments not addressed, and those can be found in Appendix C of your packets. So the proposed revisions are consistent with the following objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. Proposed cultural and historical preservation section contain minimal edits and is consistent with the existing historic preservation policies. Proposed policies are also consistent with several policies in the future land use element listed on the screen before you. The proposed language includes existing adopted policy direction regarding protecting existing neighborhoods from the intrusion of incompatible uses and directing the growth of non-residential and higher density residential uses along major roadways and intersections. And the proposed language is also consistent with the EDGE economic development section, which has language on including employment opportunities for economically disadvantaged populations in a feasible manner through existing programs, incentives, and other collaborative efforts. So based on this, Planning Commission staff recommends that proposed text amendment HCCPA 23-23 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you, and I'm available for any questions.
All right. We didn't have anyone sign up for item C in the public comment, but I did just check the room. All right. You can say your question. We're not necessarily going to answer it directly yet.
Expecting you to answer it. I don't expect. Okay. I rarely get an answer anyway. But this EDGE, I understand the objective and the intent of the EDGE, and I'm just asking or checking that there's some definition of what EDGE is, and I'm assuming there is, and seeking confirmation that there's something within either the land development code or the comprehensive plan that defines what, because there are certain preferential treatments apparently being provided for EDGE community, or if the EDGE is EDGE component is considered, effective or valid, and so there needs to be some validity, some proof of or definition of what is an EDGE. Okay. Is it my definition, your definition, or who? What is it?
Okay. Could you state your name too before you step away?
Bill O'Brien.
Thank you, sir. All right. I'll let staff. I see Andrew's ready to.
Yeah, we do have a definition in the definition section today. I don't know the last date it was amended, but we do have an economically disadvantaged population. And I have it on the Elmo. I'm not sure if it's, oh, sorry. So we do have a definition today in the definition section of the plan.
All right. All right, so with that,
a lot bigger. Sorry about that.
We will turn it over to the planning commissioners for discussion of this item. I have obviously some comments on this item. I'm still obviously against us getting rid of the EDGE. I think the importance of shining a spotlight on economically disadvantaged members of this community almost goes without saying. I find it unimaginable that staff took it upon itself to do this without, talking to the community, talking to the elected officials. I mean, I just find it shocking. Like, some of the policies in the EDGE have to do with homelessness. They have to do with poverty. They have to do with the elderly. They have all these very sensitive groups that we're dealing with. And staff's claim that we're dissolving the EDGE and moving these policies to this new area. I did a little looking, and I just want to read some of these policies. New policy 3.3.3 reads, identify opportunities to locate employment, generating uses and economic development programs with areas proximate to or accessible to economically disadvantaged populations. The policies that this three-line phrases are replacing are these. EDGE 6.3. The county understands that gainful employment serves to improve the quality of life for economically disadvantaged persons. The county, in cooperation with local school board, public university, private and nonprofit agencies, provide opportunities for job training and retraining, such as but not limited to apprenticeship programs, work-study programs that are readily accessible to economically disadvantaged group populations within the unincorporated county. Another one that's being taken out. The county shall continue to support and work closely with the private, not-for-profit corporations to provide local transitional and long-term care housing programs to provide technical assistance to expand programs which help homeless families and individuals reach self-sufficiency. This policy is being replaced by 3.3.4, which reads, provide assistance to minority business enterprises for economically disadvantaged populations, support minority business enterprises through incentivizing investments, which may include the development of small business incubators and other programs in economic development department. We're going from a focus on homeless families to business incubators. Like, there's a disconnect there. And this is why I said we shouldn't mess with this to begin with. So you're not going to get my support on this one. I think any policy that's put forward tonight that has to do with dissolving the EDGE, because I don't think it's been very well thought out, is not going to get my support. And I hope you make it very clear to the Board of County Commissioners what you're doing here, right, in dissolving this EDGE element. This is not something that's just convenient and fun for staff because, it feels good. Like, these are people's lives. And I think we do the community a great disservice. And when we look back on this going forward, we're going to see it as a big mistake. And that's just my opinion on it. Yes.
If I can just share a little bit about staff's rationale behind the process we've taken over the last 3 years in we have tried to move the policies that we felt should be retained and were consistent with the scope of the comprehensive plan into the elements that they related to, because we felt that brought more prominence to them as opposed to them being in an element that it's unfortunate to say has often been overlooked in the review of projects or in the implementation by the county staff. So we have taken components of them, of the economically disadvantaged groups element, now reside in the mobility section, in the recreation and open space, in intergovernmental coordination, and now in housing. There's a large chunk in housing, as well as in the future land use element. So I think there also is I guess perhaps a philosophical difference of opinion about which is better, more prominent. From staff's perspective, we felt it was more prominent to have them integrated in with the topical areas. So if somebody's looking at the issues of housing, they go and see all of the housing related policies, including those that relate to economically disadvantaged groups. Certainly respect your opinion in seeing that the other approach would bring them more focus and prominence. I would also say that there are some policies that I'm not sure that the comprehensive plan is necessarily the right place to address workforce training. You know, the comprehensive plan is focused on growth, development, infrastructure, so I'm not sure that that's necessarily integrates as well there. So there were some topics that I think we felt could be better reflected in other programs that the county was pursuing and that related to the topics in the comprehensive plan. So, thank you.
I did have one other question, because I did have one of these policies, Edge 2.0. The county shall implement combination of strategies to increase the provision of affordable housing. These strategies shall include, but not be limited to the following policies. They list out some stuff, but it referred to being combined with proposed new flu policy 3.6, and I didn't see a policy 3.6 in the package. So does 3.6 exist, or did we just dissolve Edge 2.0 and it's not being incorporated into?
That was a mistake. It's 3.4. I apologize. And 3.4 is in there.
Okay.
That was my mistake. Sorry.
I would just also mention that a number of the policies were incorporated into housing. And so I believe that one also, there are policies related to that in the housing section that's previously been updated.
Well, like I said, these are very sensitive areas of our community, so to believe and to make sure that it's done are two different things for me. This really, really gives me pause, folks. I've been working with you all for about to be a decade in here now. I have the utmost respect for all of you. You know what I mean? And I think this is a big, big, big mistake. So you will not get my support on this one or number 8. Just isn't going to happen. I think it's ironic too that we use existing EDGE policies as justification for dissolving the EDGE. If you look at the staff report, we use current EDGE policy 4.3 and current EDGE policy 6.3 as grounds for dissolving the EDGE itself. It's like upside down world for me. So are there any more discussion items or comments from the commissioners? No more public comment. Yeah, it's up to the commissioners now. Not seeing any at this point, then I'm gonna go on ahead and end my rant and open it up to the commissioners for motions on this item. Commissioner Buzza.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we find HCCPA 23-23 consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward on to the county commissioners.
All right, we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. We have a second to that motion. Commissioner Kress. All right, we have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kress. Are there any comments from the commissioners? Not seeing any at this time, will all signify their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Nay. So we have Commissioner Fernandez, Commissioner Joseph, and Commissioner Bowden opposed, and approving we have Commissioner Cardenas, Commissioner Kress, Commissioner Buzza, Commissioner Sieben, and Commissioner Kona. So it passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to 3. Good deal. All right. Next up, we have action item number 4, 2D, HCCPA 23-24, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal number 4, Development, and the presenter is Jay Collins.
All right, good evening, Commissioners. Jay Collins, Planning Commission staff. Give me a second where I can try to see what I'm doing here. Goal 4 is development. I'd like to read to you first what that goal actually is. It is to create safe, livable, and sustainable communities serving the needs of all residents that provide opportunities for housing, jobs, services in close proximity with a variety of mobility choices. So basically what we're going to do is we're going to have a conversation about where we've been, where we are, and where we're going policy-wise for where you've been for these 3 goals that you've already had, Goal 4, development, and then moving forward. What we're going to do is just talk a little bit about some of those proposed changes. Commercial locational criteria, which has already had some changes that have gone on previously. We talk about where will non-residential uses go? Where will the jobs go? So what has been added in this is a way to organize ourselves about what is and what isn't to meet locational criteria. And that's the addition of context classification maps for both unincorporated Hillsborough County and also for the state. Also, the consideration of neighborhood mixed use 6, that's a new category. It is not explained in this particular goal, that is elsewhere in the comprehensive plan, but it is so that non-residential uses not to include intensive commercial and industrial, and it shows again where those uses shall be applied. Transit-oriented development. There is transit-oriented development policy today in unincorporated Hillsborough County's policy, as well as the City of Tampa. This is just updated policy that outlines the process for publicly initiated plan amendments in the event that a fixed guideway transit system should be proposed. Fixed guideway. So we are talking about like the streetcar in the City of Tampa, a train, if you will, or bus rapid transit. We are not talking about just simply a bus operating anywhere in unincorporated Hillsborough County. It's a much larger facility investment than that. Innovative housing options, congregate living facilities. I believe that this was introduced earlier. This is again a policy to further explain some of the congregate living facilities. And that is that density may be calculated using either dwelling units per gross acre or the floor area ratio, however big the building is, whichever is more beneficial, again, subject to a rezoning. And that is something that was actually spelled out a little bit more in the forms that were given to you to show about some of the changes that have occurred since you last saw this. Specifically, that is talking about policy 452. Non-residential uses at specific locations. Again, as we improve the future land use element, some things go away. Activity centers are going away. Activity centers were a way to actually organize ourselves. You can still organize yourself without activity centers, interstate interchanges. So again, this is just adding specificity to where some of those uses belong. One other use that is on this page I did want to point out, again, is under land use suitability, and that is talking about some of those uses that occur within the coastal high hazard area. So we talk a little bit about where we've just been, things that are retained, things that are renumbered, they're simplified, or they've been clarified. And there's a lot in Goal 4. We talk about it, again, there's some stuff with mixed use, suitability of lands, neighborhood, community serving uses. These are all things that build upon one another. But there's also some things that are just appear here that, again, talk about the built environment and how services and how we organize ourselves. That includes airports and seaports, electrical power generation facilities, as well as telecommunication facilities. We had great conversations with everybody in this building and outside of this building for agency comments. There were multiple changes that were made. You'll see all of that in your backup in Appendix C. There were no formal objections here. Consistency findings, again, this is moving forward with some of those ideas. So you'll see FLU Objective 1 and Policy 1.2 within the urban service area, development driving into it. Objective 3 and Policy 3.1, again in the FLU tools for implementation, as considering that conversation here. Objective 5 and Policy 5.1, growth management, wrapping it together. Management of natural resources going into the environmental and sustainability, as well as mobility to promote connectivity, not just for the ideas of commercial locational criteria or for transit-oriented development, but for land use suitability and a variety of other aspects within this Goal 4. And with that, the recommendation is for Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment, HCCPA 2324, be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. This concludes my presentation, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Collins. All right. I had Cammie Corbett signed up, but she's no longer here, is she? All right. I'll open it up to any of the gentlemen in the room. Did anyone, I didn't sign up, but I'll ask no. All right. So we didn't have anyone else sign up in the public comments. So I will turn it over to the planning commissioners for questions or discussion items on this one. Yes, Commissioner Sieben.
For policy 4.2.1, it says project proposed in all mixed-use plan categories shall be required to develop
49 and the associated policies. So as a result, this area, I guess, of the comprehensive plan that was for agricultural, it didn't have a goal. So we thought we need to tie this in and be able to wrap all of those policies together and just make it a stronger, overall policy, group of policies. So after we added Goal 5, we did a couple of grammatical changes. It's just tweaking a word here and there. adding hyphens where we need to, or adding a word just to make it sound a little bit more grammatically correct. And then after that, all we did was renumber all the policies. So you'll see that all the strike through and the clean changes in your packets. We did send it out for agency, comments, and we didn't receive any type of objections. We did have a couple of comments here and there. They are located in Appendix C. We did respond to some of the agency comments, but it was mostly, questioning why we didn't take a little bit more of an aggressive approach in probably changing some of the other policies, such as RP2. We decided to take a little bit more conservative approach, knowing the history behind the changes that have recently occurred with RP2, so we kind of say we're not touching those policies at all. We did have stakeholder meetings. We met with the AEDC, which is the Agricultural Economic Development Council. We had 3 meetings with them. They didn't have any comments. We also met with the Hillsborough Soil and Water Conservation District. We had 1 meeting, no comments at all. And we also had a final meeting with the Farm Bureau. And again, we didn't have any objections from any of the agencies. So Planning Commission staff did review it for consistency with, the policies of timing and growth in the rural area, and then the compatibility objectives and policies. We found it consistent. So at this point, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment HC CPA 23-25 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough Comprehensive Plan.
All right, we didn't have anyone sign up for the public comment on this one, so I'll kick it to the room. All right, you can, come on up. Bill O'Brien.
I'm back. I'll be quick. Once again, I just want to reiterate my comments similar to the first goal that you voted upon, and that is I believe in the agricultural component that there should also be requirements that concurrency requirements that are included in the agricultural element for the comprehensive plan. The requirements for transportation, existing infrastructure, new developments should consider and it should be evaluated that the existing infrastructure, transportation, et cetera, is available and either in the plan or either approved or in place prior to approval for developments within the agricultural districts or the agricultural areas of Hillsborough County.
Thank you.
I'm just standing here because I almost feel as though I'm just speaking and nothing's happening. So
No, it's all right. Staff will, when you're done, staff will have their chance to respond to the various comments.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. All right. Did staff want to respond?
I can respond to that as well. Melissa Leinhardt for the record. The item that I presented, Goal 1, that talked about adequate public facilities, that would apply to any type of development or urban expansion area or anything that is currently used for agricultural today. So the Goal 1, all those policies would also apply under the agricultural lands if they're redeveloped or developed.
Okay, very good. All right. So over to the commissioners now for any discussion items, questions, comments, thoughts on this item. Not seeing any. Going once, going twice, and I'll close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this one. Commissioner Fernandez.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. If I make a motion to find HC CPA 2325 under Goal 5 in the future land use cycle consistent with Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forward that recommendation to Board of County Commissioners.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Fernandez, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kona. Any comments, questions, discussions from the commissioners? Not seeing any, then we'll all signify their approval by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? All right, it passes unanimously. Oh, where are we now? 2F, HCCPA 23-26, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal 6, Built Environment, and the presenter is Andrea Pappendrew.
Andrea Pappendrew, Planning Commission staff. This is Goal 6, Future Land Use Section Update for the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. So the first proposed change is the community design component, which is currently at the back of the future land use element. Staff is proposing to move this section into the main body under Goal 6. So the design component has policies on a wide range of topics, from the urban and suburban and rural form to building facade and placement, non-residential, mixed use and commercial, and our vehicular and pedestrian network. The second proposed change is to move 2 policies to the public schools element for the unincorporated county's comprehensive plan. So these policies fit within the existing language of the public schools element, specifically objective 4.1, as it relates to the planning design of schools in regards to pedestrian, bicycle, and automobiles. And then the third change is to add language to an existing policy under the rural area section to support existing agricultural uses and maintain rural character development as a viable residential alternative to urban and suburban areas. The fourth change modified language based on comments received from the Hillsborough County Conservation and Environmental Lands Management Department to require the use of native plants and reduce wildlife hazards for landscaping. And then the final change added a new policy 6.8.8, which encourages the county to coordinate land use and transportation to increase the network's efficiency and plan for targeted levels of service. So for Goal 6, there are no formal objections received from agency comments. There were multiple language changes requested, and any comments not addressed by staff have crafted responses in Appendix C of your packets. So the proposed revisions are consistent with the following objectives and policies of the comprehensive plan. The design guidelines ensure compatible development pattern with the existing surrounding area and provide neighborhood and residential areas protection from incompatible commercial uses. It's also consistent with several mobility section policies regarding prioritizing the safety of all users, providing context-sensitive and complete street guidelines, and building a comprehensive bicycle pedestrian system, and providing interconnectivity and access management. Based on this, Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment HCCPA 23-26 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. Thank you. I'm available for any questions.
Thank you. All right, we didn't have anyone sign up in the public comment for this one, so I'll just put it out there again, see if there's anyone in the room. No? All right. Turn it over to the planning commissioners. Yes, Commissioner Kona.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of, I think sometimes goals like this kind of overly complex what's already in the land development code. So I don't think most of this stuff belongs in the actual comp plan itself, because I think it's addressed in the, like I said, in the land development code. So I think we need to work on this one. I'm not going to support it as it is. There are some things in there that I do like, but I think at this time, since it's going to be a living and breathing document, I think it really requires a little bit more work. And anything that is in the land development code that is currently sitting and then being highlighted in the comp plan, I can't agree with. So that's my thought.
Thank you, Commissioner Kona. Are there any other comments?
I just wanted to add two pieces of context. One, I just wanted to add two pieces of context. One, a lot of this is in there to enable the more detailed language in the land development code. So they do work hand in hand together. Specifically, the language in this section is generally written in an encourage, support, less regulatory tone than shall or will. It's not requirements, it's more, again, that what's envisioned and then the land development code implements it. The other thing that I wanted to add, because particularly in this section, when we were working on reviewing this, there was a Senate Bill 250, I think I've mentioned in some of the prior meetings, it got lifted from applicability to us, but over the large part of the summer and fall while we were working on finalizing this language, that was in place. And the county attorney's office guided us to be very cautious about making changes, particularly in this section, for fear that it would come across as being more restrictive or regulatory, and that was what was prohibited by Senate Bill 250. So, so we honestly didn't make as many changes as we thought we would initially in this area. So just wanted to provide that information.
Thank you. I did have some comments on this one too. I would echo Commissioner Kona's comments. This one was kind of up in the air for me. I felt that, you know, staff, it doesn't seem like there's, and maybe that's to what Mrs. Ornita just talked about, the apprehensiveness, that there was a good comprehension of what staff was doing here. Again, it feels very kind of haphazard, kind of, you know, just repetitive. And so it gave me a little bit of pause going through this one. And it's, you know, it's not something that, whenever these things give me pause and it's something as big as the future land use element, you know what I mean? It makes me definitely think it needs more work. It needs more thought.
Yes, as Melissa Zornita mentioned, when we were working on this, we had the Senate Bill 250 restrictions. And when we had went out to the community, this is what we were proposing to change the minimal edits based on that Senate bill. And so we didn't want to come in at the last minute and make major changes that we hadn't presented to the community. And so I understand the comments. I think our goal was to start with a good baseline and bring this into the full main body, and then be able to build upon that with future CPA cycles. And I did want to just clarify for the record that the public school element policies are moving to objective 1.4. Apologies. Thank you.
Did you want to?
I just wanted to add a little bit about the community design component. I understand both of your comments, and we can add that to our living document list. But I would say that from a staff perspective and consistency reviews, we utilize that part of the future land use element quite a bit. It does work hand in hand with the land development code, and it also gives us direction as staff when we have like mixed use projects to highlight those site design and building design parts of the design component are really helpful to us as staff to have something to point to as a baseline. So they're helpful in that way, and I wanted to point that out. Thank you.
All right. And this, just want to be clear, dissolves the design section.
I wouldn't say dissolve. It's in the flu today, and we're just reorganizing it and bringing it to the main body of the future land use into Goal 6. Wouldn't say it dissolve because we did remove duplicative policies, but we didn't like get rid of it in its entirety.
Okay. Commissioner Conley.
Yeah, I understand the thought behind it, and I see what you guys are saying. The problem with me is I think it confuses the process. I think somebody looks at the comp plan, and then there's a judgment call, and then that judgment call gets kicked back at the land development for the land development code. So I want to try to eliminate the confusion and eliminate, like, if it's in the code, it's in the code, and you guys should find it consistent. There shouldn't be any ambiguity on the front end and like warm and fuzzies to make people feel something that's not going to get passed. So that's my biggest concern.
Thank you, Commissioner Kona. Are there any other comments from the planning commissioners or questions? Did you want to respond or say anything? I saw you were quiet, so I just assumed it. Okay. All right. So with that, then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this item. Everybody's had their fill. Open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Commissioner Buzza, I know it's coming.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I move that we find HC CPA 23-26 consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan and forwarded on to the County Commission.
Right. A motion of consistency finding. Is there a second to Commissioner Buzza's? Commissioner Fernandez. All right. We have a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Fernandez. Any comments or questions from the commissioners? All right. Would all signify their approval by saying aye? Aye. Those opposed?
Aye.
All right. So we are 2 to 6, and it passes consistent. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, who were the no votes?
Oh, the no votes were Commissioner Joseph and Commissioner Kona.
Thank you.
Sorry about that. All right. Next up, we have 2G, HCCPA 23-7 Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal 7, Balance with Natural Resources, and the presenter is Jillian Massey.
Good evening. I'm Jillian Massey with Planning Commission staff. I'll be presenting on Goal 7 of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan Future Land Use Section Update, and this is about natural resources. The proposed text amendments under Goal 7 don't include any deletion of existing policies, and it does not move any policies to other sections in the comprehensive plan. The proposed amendments are minor in nature, providing clarifying and descriptive language within existing policies. So as mentioned, these are minor changes, the main one being the addition of the language for Goal 7, which states to seek a balance between the preservation of natural systems and the built environment while simultaneously being prepared for adverse natural events, provide an environment where people naturally interact with each other in their community, including streets, parks, and other public facilities. Another change is the addition of Objective 7.1 under the Environmental Protection and Resiliency subsection, and it's descriptive language relating to encouraging growth that is sustainable and resilient while protecting environmentally sensitive resources. Lastly, one of the ones to note is Policy 7.4.5, which includes additional language regarding the review of plan amendments near the Port Tampa Bay. So currently, the language states that Planning Commission will transmit a copy of all land use plan amendment applications to Port Tampa Bay that are within the Port Activity Center or within 200 feet of that area as identified in their master plan. The revision rewrites the policy to specify sending its applications to the Port of Tampa Bay within 250 feet of the center, or any amendment proposing changes to an existing industrial future land use designated parcel. So they would like to see amendments in industrial areas. Like all the other goals, this one was sent out for agency comment. We did receive comments from external agencies, including the county's Conservation and Environmental Lands Management Group, Community and Infrastructure Planning Department, and as you saw in the previous slide, the Tampa Bay Port Authority. There were changes made based on those comments, and the ones that were not addressed are in the staff responses in your Appendix C in your packet, but there were no formal objections. Planning Commission staff has reviewed these text amendments for consistency with existing policy language in the comprehensive plan, has found it to be consistent with a number of goals, objectives, and policies. Particularly future land use element objective 10, which is under the land use suitability subsection of the comprehensive plan. It discusses how development orders shall not be issued unless development is suitable for the physical conditions of the land. Future land use element objective 13, which discusses environmental conditions. It describes that new development and redevelopment shall not adversely impact environmentally sensitive areas. Objective 14 in the future land use element is relating to clustering for conservation and natural resources, and it discusses that new development and redevelopment shall provide open space to protect natural resources. There's other objectives under the future land use element, including 28 and 31 relating to working waterfronts and natural resource protection. 31 discusses the protection of natural resources necessary to sustain agricultural activities. And finally, the community design component explores opportunities to create incentives for green developments through LEED or other similar programs. So staff found the text amendments consistent with this policy language. And Planning Commission staff recommends that the proposed text amendment HCCPA 23-27 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the incorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. And I'm here for questions. Thank you.
Thank you. No one signed up in the public comment officially, so I'll kick it over what was the gentleman's name? William Coleman. Dave Coleman.
Thank you, Dave Coleman, North Hillsborough. It's not something that I've read all the details in there. I just want to stand here and say that I've been on a Walter Smith's toxic bus tour. I have followed the history of TICO for the past 20 years from a condemnation letter that was brought by the state EPA condemning the unlined coal ash piles. There's notes in that thing about plywood being stuffed to stuff up holes from the coal ash dumping into our estuary. There is comments about a pipe that runs from the gypsum stacks into the coal ash piles as an overflow. And in the estuary below the coal ash piles can be found gypsum. What is that? How does something like that happen, especially in a red line community, or frontline community that really has no options, way to get out of there, and yet there are two environmental disasters sitting there in our Hillsborough County, and any comprehensive plan would have to absolutely include transparency, getting information and knowledge out. It shouldn't be Walter Smith having to go in and try and, we're testing the air in that area. We tried to do a health fair to find out what the effects are, the long-term effects on the citizens that are living right in that area. And that should be something that we should really look at. And my last point would be that Gwen Myers did a town hall in that area, and it was two communities together. But they said that one of their largest concerns was the environment. So I asked the person who was conducting the study, I said, what did they say about TICO and about Mosaic being right there? And they said, well, that didn't come up. It didn't come up. I think it would be incumbent on a planning commission and downstairs to make sure that everybody's aware of the hazards. The EPA, our county EPA, is currently, from September, this is when I found this part out, is that they are monitoring a shifting plume of toxin waste beneath the where the unlined coal ash piles were. They have consolidated it into one pile. I've gone on and on about how dangerous a situation it is, how long it has lasted, and how abusive TICO has been against our citizens here in Hillsborough County. They literally get fines, and then they go to Tallahassee and they get approved rate hikes to pay their fines. We need a comprehensive plan going forward that would address the citizens and the needs of the citizens as far as electrical power, clean energy, and also the health and welfare of the citizens that live directly in the midst of that toxic waste. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Coleman. All right. Did you want to come up? Yeah. Bill O'Brien, please.
Bill O'Brien, just another brief note relative, I believe it's to policy 10 in this particular segment. There's a lot of references made to protecting the developments and the adjacent wetlands and environmentally sensitive areas, but there's no real reference made to creating developments that elevate their properties and subsequently create new wetlands for the adjacent landowners and property owners. And I think there should have been something in this particular goal that addressed that situation. Do you understand? Okay.
Yeah. Did you want to say something? You looking? Did staff want to? Did anybody else? Let me just check, make sure there were no more public comments. All right. You all want to address?
I think the issue that Mr. O'Brien raised is addressed in the stormwater section of the One Water portion of the comp plan. I'm just trying to find it, about ensuring that the impacts and runoff of other when development occurs are not adversely impacting other properties. I believe that's in the One Water. Melissa's nodding that it is, yes. So,
come identify yourself.
For the record, Melissa Leinhardt, and I said it is in the One Water section.
Okay,
that's confirmation. Thank you.
Thank you. All right. Public comment, response done. So time to turn it over to the commissioners for discussion items, questions, or comments on this one. Commissioner Kress.
I don't remember seeing, for Jillian, I don't remember seeing it in there, and tell me if this is the right spot, but something that speaks to the protection of a wildlife corridor. Would that be appropriate in
That's
in this goal?
probably what you're referring to under Objective 13, under environmental considerations. There is this language about wildlife, significant wildlife habitat.
Okay.
I don't believe that we're changing any of that language.
So you believe that the emphasis on wildlife corridors is appropriately in there?
I think the existing policy language is
Okay.
adequate, yes.
Thank you.
I see Ms. Sornita moving.
Yeah, I would just add that we also enhanced, when we updated the environmental and sustainability section of the plan, we enhanced the language working with the county ELAP staff on creating wildlife corridors. I don't have it in front of me which one it is, but it's in there. Oh, thank you.
Well, she's on the record, so. All right. Are there any other questions or discussion items from the commissioners on this one? Not seeing any, then I will go on ahead and close the public comment on this one and open it up to motions from the commissioners on this item. Anybody? Looking at you, Commissioner Buzz. All right, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move that we find HC CPA 23-27, Goal 7, consistent with the comprehensive plan of Hillsborough County, and forward on to the county commissioners.
All right, a motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. Is there a second to that motion anywhere out there?
Second.
Commissioner Kress. All right, we have a second by Commissioner Kress. Motion of consistency finding by Commissioner Buzza. Would all please signify their approval by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion passes unanimously. All right, last one. 2H, HCCPA 23-28, Comprehensive Plan Text Amendment, Goal number 8, Economic Development, and the presenter is David Hay.
Good evening, Commissioners. David Hay with your Planning Commission staff. The next item is that Goal 8 related to economic development. The proposed changes to this Goal 8, there's modification to the introductory language under the Goal 8 statement. Those changes were made based on county input. In Objective 8.1, there's clarifying target industries as ones defined by state statute, also encouraging the county to promote employment and balance to populations seeking employment. Under proposed policy 8.1.3, there's the removal of a reference to economic development areas, and it provides a broader reference to sites or areas and allows flexibility during site design. There's new language under policy 8.1.4 that is supporting incentive efforts and flexibility in the prioritization of public infrastructure in locating those target industries in areas identified as redevelopment pilot project areas. Under 8.1.8, it's new policy guidance related to the protection of lands planned for office and industrial uses. And then under 8.1.10, there's additional policy guidance related to the ability of the county to provide financial and regulatory incentives in promoting quality economic development. There were some minor modifications to policy 8.1.1, 8.1.2, 8.1.5, and 8.1.9. Those were all carried over and updated. As been stated previously tonight, the EDGE element is proposed to be sunsetted and several policies transitioned over to the updated flu element. Other policies from the EDGE element have already transitioned over to mobility, recreation, open space, and intergovernmental coordination. EDGE policies related to housing, employment, economic development, public health, and land use have been spread throughout the goals that have been presented to you this evening. Staff also updated terminology for several former EDGE policies to ensure overall consistency with current practice and to bring them into compliance with the plan's 20-year horizon. It should be noted that all deleted policy and maps, either within that EDGE or any other portion of the FLU, are attached to Goal 8 at the back of Attachment D, right after the proposed strike-through and underline language for policies associated with Goal 8. As always, we worked with our partner agencies and received valuable feedback from them that we as staff believe has created several improvements to the proposed policy language and associated text within the comprehensive plan. Planning Commission staff worked with partner agencies up until the 11th hour, fine-tuning and updating policy language, ensuring best practices related to economic development are provided for in the proposed policy language. I'm glad to report that though we had numerous meetings and discussions with our partners, we believe we have addressed their discussion points and no formal objections were received. The proposed economic development goal and associated policies, though staff believes there are numerous areas of consistency with the current adopted plan, we wanted to highlight 3 of the most relevant areas of consistency. Related to the overall timing of growth, staff found that the proposed policy language is consistent with currently adopted FLU Policy 2.2 related to the timing of growth. This policy sets out when it may be appropriate to consider expansion of the urban service area and the priorities for infrastructure investment. These policies were relevant during the last major expansion known as the Energy Industrial Park. Multiple policies within Goal 8 are consistent with adopted economic development policies related to preferred locations of employment-generating uses, the promotion of certain residential support uses, such as daycare uses, being located within proximity to employment, the prioritization of employment uses in specific areas over other non-industrial uses being developed, and the promotion of home-based businesses. Finally, the proposed policies are also consistent with environmental and sustainability policies related to the protection of surface waters as requiring a site plan controlled zoning district in the limited circumstances when the site, an economic development related site, is located adjacent to a major water body. So it should not be a surprise to you all that staff is recommending the proposed text amendment HCCPA 2328 be found consistent with the goals, objectives, and policies of the unincorporated Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan. I'm available for any questions. I did want to also close that all the goals of these are scheduled for the March 7th BOCC hearing. So I'm
Thank
available
you.
if you have any questions. Thank you.
All right, we didn't have anyone sign up in the public comment, but I'll open it up to our gentleman in the room here. Does anybody want to speak on this one? No? All right, then I will turn it over to our commissioners for questions or comments, discussions on this one. Mr. Hay, I did have some questions myself. I mean, obviously, I'm not going to support this one because, again, this is the second half of dissolving the EDGE, but I did have some points in the document that I wanted you to speak to. I noticed I have the same kind of authority questions that I spoke about before. For instance, objective 8.1, additionally, the county will promote businesses that provide diverse employment opportunities and appropriate jobs and housing in balance where people can live near their workplace and that there are enough jobs in the area to support the local population. I just wanted to be sure we're not tying the hands of elected officials or stepping in their lane in any sort of way with this language and making sure that, you know, it's clear that, you know, people's prerogatives are properly aligned with their purviews and things like that.
Oh, absolutely. I don't think we're restricting there. It uses the word promote, which provides options, I think,
Okay.
not limiting in any way.
Okay, and I had this other policy here at the end of that one, 8.1.1, at the end of it. If at any time child care facility vacates the project and is replaced with a non-child care related use, any density or intensity that exceeds the maximums permitted for consideration under the site's future land use designation will be considered non-conforming.
That, David Hay, Planning Commission staff, we received specific feedback or questions from the county staff related to the language regarding what happens if the daycare use, because they're not counting that daycare use to their square footage. So the question from the county was, well, how do we address it if if that daycare use goes away, so then there has to be some, this directs that if it's not meeting that requirement, because it's technically a bonus because you're not counting it, it has to revert back. They could use it and it will remain in non-compliance, but then if they come in for a zoning or anything like that, it would need to come into compliance.
Okay,
at
that was my
point, yes.
question. Like, it's already built out and they, then the daycare gets pulled out, what happens then?
Right,
So
there's
that-
many uses that are in non-compliance of the plan. If they come in to change,
Right.
is when they have to
Deal with it, okay.
conform.
All right. And one more on 8.1.3. Again, same question about authority. At the end of 8.1.3, we have another shall. Competitive sites and existing office industrial uses are important to the economic future of unincorporated Hillsborough County. In addition, having targeted industry jobs located proximate to residential development for workforce and site design flexibility shall be considered to support this effort. Is that limiting in the way of that being the only thing that can be considered to support the effort, or how is that
I would
envisaged?
read it. Oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I don't think that's limiting.
I agree, and I would also say that the majority of this language started being vetted with Hillsborough County's Economic Development Department. I mean, probably 5 years ago, we started looking at the economic development section, and it's kind of morphed over the years, and that is one of the ones that they helped craft and are supportive of, but I do not read it as limiting.
Okay. And the goal 8, the first opening paragraph where we talk about increased vehicle miles traveled between home and employment can contribute to traffic congestion, cost residents, and lost productivity through longer commuting times and increased air pollution. Tools and policies that increase transit opportunities and development around transit stops can help mitigate some of these impacts. Was that our language, or did that come from economic development, specifically the VMTs? And talk about congestion, air pollution. I'm catching certain words in there that pique my interest. I was just wondering where that came from.
It was discussed in conjunction with them, but I do believe we kind of honed that policy internally with people like Katrina, who are experts in, our mobility sections. We wanted to see if we could craft some language that was complementary to policy language we had in other parts of the comprehensive plan.
And I would just simply add that I think what's underneath the heading office, industrial, and targeted industries is, like, goal 8 ends with the word growth, and then that is like narrative kind of
Descriptive
providing
language, yeah.
context. I think it's, more descriptive, and typically we don't utilize the descriptive language to find something consistent or inconsistent.
Yeah, I knew that. I saw VMT and air pollution, and I know these are things that are mobility going forward. Commissioners, you're going to hear these terms a lot more in the years coming. And there's going to be some big discussions about why or why not we aren't doing these things because of quantification. So to see them pop up here was immediate flag for me, kind of like, well, what's kind of going on there? So that's the only reason why I asked the question.
The only other thing that I would add is that when we did start this work, there was a big, a lot of discussion about the fact that we have a lot of jobs in our 3 main job centers, downtown, West Shore, and the university area, but a lot of our population growth is not necessarily in those areas. It's in South Hillsborough County, for example, and so trying to provide more balance in that equation was one of the things that was the goal.
All right. Were there any more? I see no lights, so everybody just wants to go home now. Is that what's going on here? All right. Going once, going twice on this one for any more comments from commissioners. Seeing none, I'll close the public comment on this item and open it up for motions from the commissioners on this item. Take us home, Commissioner Buzzer.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'd like to move we find HC CPA 23-28, goal number 8, consistent with the Hillsborough County Comprehensive Plan, and forward on to the County Commission.
All right, that's a motion of consistency finding from Commissioner Buzza. Is there a second to his motion of consistency finding out there? Commissioner Kress?
Second.
All right, we have a motion of consistency by Commissioner Buzza, a second to that motion by Commissioner Kress. Any comments from the commissioners? Comment? No? Not seeing any. Then would all please signify their approval by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Aye. All right. Oh, all right. It passes 2, 3, 6-2. Commissioner Joseph and Fernandez voting no. All right, that is it. Meeting adjourned. Good night, folks.